Loud and silver lining.
Hey guys, welcome to Black Ambassadors of Change, and this week we're here with my man
Delroy Smith, licensed real estate broker for New Middleton Realty.
And where you're located?
Office in Mount Vernon, New York, and also here in Rye Brook in Westchester County.
All right, so this week we're gonna get into some discussion about real estate and hopefully educate you about the ins and outs and give you some valuable information, because this is a time where there are lots of opportunities out there. So we want you to be able to take full advantage of those opportunities. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Black Ambassadors of Change. Stay tuned. All right, so let's talk about the rental market a little bit. I know during this pandemic, a lot of people are looking, but landlords are a little bit leery about renting to people because they don't know what the job situation. What are the pros and cons of being a renter right now and a landlord?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Because of the current COVID situation, I'm finding that there's a lot of vacancies. And so what that means is that, someone that is an essential worker has a great opportunity now to get into a rental and to get into it at a reasonable price. Landlords are more willing now to negotiate on their rental price because of that. And so it's a good opportunity for someone that is an essential worker to get into a unit now. Landlords, however, are more skeptical now, right? They really want all the paperwork. They really want to make sure that this person is actively working on a regular schedule before they, willing to go and rent. So it's a, double-edged sword, again, landlords are definitely skeptical, but if your paperwork is in order, and if you're someone that's not furloughed, you're someone that's not just collecting unemployment, you have a good opportunity now to rent at a decent price.
Right. Signing a lease.
Yeah.
Do you recommend signing a 1-year lease or a 2-year lease? Because I know some people say that it's a better advantage for a 2-year for a tenant, because then you don't have to worry about rent increases, versus for a landlord, it may not be to your advantage, because if you have a bad tenant, it's just a longer time or challenge to get that person out. Talk to me about that.
True, right. So I try to encourage 2-year lease. So typically, your rent might go up, let's say 1.2% every year. But if you sign a 2-year lease, it might just go up 1%, right? Something to that effect, depending on, what agreement you have with the landlord. And New York State has its own laws. And so, 12 months, man, be gone in no time, and I tell prospective tenants that all the time. So if some landlords don't give you that option. Some landlords just want to do 12 months, that's it, just to kind of see how things go, right? But if you do get the option from a landlord management company to do a 2-year lease, and you know for sure that your intentions is not to be out within 2 years, sign the 2 years. Because in most cases, it's not like it's costing you more money up front, it's just going to save you more money in the long run. So, from a tenant standpoint, it makes sense to do a 2-year lease. The landlord, obviously, yes. Here's the thing too, right? If you have a good tenant, there's really no need to go up on rent, right? I have landlords call me all the time, this tenant lease is about to be up and I really want to go up, extra $25 or $50 on the rent. And what I always ask the landlord is, well, what kind of tenant is it, right? And so you have some tenants that will come home, and if there's a piece of paper on the floor, they'll pick it up, they treat the place like it's their own. And so to me, those type of tenants, unless it's really going to cause you a problem financially, there's no need to go up on the rent, right? They're treating the place like it's their own, and so you don't want to get rid of a tenant like that for a tenant that's going to pay extra $50, but it's going to cost you, a broken toilet or a broken window or broken wall, hundreds in the long run, right? And so, sometimes I got to educate landlords too, especially the newer ones, of what qualify as a good tenant or not. It's not always the tenant that's paying more, right? It's the tenant that preserve and take care of your place and treat it as their own.
So where do you see the real estate market? Do you think it's a good time? Do you think you should wait? Do you think you should invest now? Where do you see the real estate market maybe in the next 6 months or so?
So interest rate now again is low, 2.8%.
Do you see it dropping more?
Maybe if we go back into another shutdown, it would drop even lower, right? So we're hoping that that doesn't happen. But if in fact that happens and unemployment continues to increase, the interest rate will drop even more. And so, you know, if things stabilize and stay where it is now and get better in terms of the COVID cases and what we're dealing with now with this crisis, interest rate will continue to go up. And so if someone was thinking about investing, now is the time to do so, right? And so we spoke about folks looking to move out of the inner city to the suburbs. And so if you're someone that was thinking about retiring and moving on, we're finding that people are starting to do that now. Work industry is bad. I was close to retirement anyway and thinking about selling this house. Perfect time to do so. You're gonna get, you know, asking price for your property, especially if it's in the suburbs. You're gonna get asking price for your property, and in most cases, it's not gonna sit on the market for a long time because there's multiple buyers out there because the interest rate is so low. And so, you know, we're gonna find right now in the market that you know things are gonna sell often, things are gonna sell quick. Someone that's looking to invest, now is definitely the time, you know, to definitely invest. However, interest rate will go back up.
What is the pros and cons of refinance, and how do I know when it's the good time to refinance?
So refinancing, you only refinance because the interest rate is lower now than what you got when you first went into the purchase. And so it doesn't cost you anything to reach out to your bank to say, hey, I'm thinking about refinancing, but I want to know what the benefits of it would be. For some people, it just doesn't make any sense, right? If you went into the property on a conventional, not an FHA, and obviously the difference between the two is, you know, FHA is a government-funded loan. You typically just have to come in with 3 or 3.5%. Whereas conventional, typically 10%. In some cases, even 5%. And so, based on which way you first came into the property, is how you would know if it even makes sense for you to refinance or not. But the whole idea of you refinance is to say, okay, interest rate today is 2.8%. When I purchased last year, this time it was 4.5%. And so they can do the numbers to show you that if you actually refi, you'll be saving an extra $200 or $300 a month on your mortgage. But you make a good point. You'll be starting over from scratch. Right? And so you would have to kind of look at the numbers along with whoever the mortgage broker is to see whether or not it makes sense for you or not. In most cases, it does make sense. But again, it doesn't hurt for somebody to call a bank and say, I'm thinking about refi, and you know, this is my current interest rate. I want to know what the interest rate is now, and to see whether or not it makes sense for me to move forward with the process.
So I want to ask you about that FHA loan, because most people that buy usually have an FHA loan, right? So now you want to refinance. What are the pros and cons of that? What is the penalty you may have to pay? Do you get the mortgage insurance and the PMI back on your loan after you refinance? Is that all back on your loan?
Yes and no, right? So if refinance, it means that you're still going to be under the 20% that you initially needed to put into the loan in order for the PMI to go away. Then obviously the PMI is going to be put back on, it's going to apply. So again, it all depends on the numbers, right? Refi is just based on the numbers. At this point, it's a numbers game. So I have a friend, for her in particular, it didn't make sense for her to refi because she would have to pay closing costs over again. There's some other additional fees that she would have to pay again, and she didn't go in FHA, she went in conventional. So in her case, although I believe she came in at a 4.2% interest rate about 2 years ago, and with it being as low as it is now, it still wouldn't make sense for her to refi. It makes sense for her to kind of stay where she is. So everyone's situation is going to be different, but it does make sense with interest rate as low as it is now for everyone to look into it. It does make sense.
Oh, okay. So is it the same procedure to finance commercial loan versus a private loan?
Yeah, pretty much.
And
Same process and procedures.
Okay.
You know, interest rate is lower,
Right.
and so if it is currently lower now than what it is when you first moved into your property or purchased your property,
Right.
then you know you just ask the bank to kind of take a look at those numbers to see whether or not it makes sense for
Okay.
you to refinance.
So a situation, I'll give you a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Say for instance, somebody have a loan and it's a FHA loan, it's PMI on the loan,
Mm-hmm.
but there's only maybe 2-3 years left before the PMI comes off.
Right.
And maybe they're paying 4 point something interest rate.
Right.
Is it feasible or is it recommended now for them to even consider refinancing?
In their case, probably not.
Okay.
Right, because in 3 years, if the PMI will go away
Yeah.
at the current interest rate,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's probably what their goal is at this point.
Right, yeah.
They'll probably end up saving more money, just sitting tight, waiting for
Yeah.
that PMI to go away, as opposed to starting the whole process over again
Yeah.
to refi, unless they're in a position where they can put a 10-20% down
Right.
once it's time for them to refi, because then at that point the PMI wouldn't even apply anyway,
Right.
And then they'll be paying a lower interest rate. But that would mean that they have to have, you know, depending on the price of the property, a significant amount of money, you know, in order to put down for a down payment.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the real estate market right now is great. What do you recommend as far as 1 family home, 2 family home? Because I know sometimes people are a little confused about whether or not what's the better investment. If
Right.
a single family home is the better investment
Right.
versus maybe a multi-family home.
Right.
Could you tell us the differences in as far as financially speaking?
Benefits of
Yeah, the benefits
So-
of that. Yeah.
For as a first-time home buyer,
Yeah.
I always try to encourage our folks
Yeah.
to go multifamily,
Okay.
right?
Why is that?
For a couple of reasons.
Okay.
Number one, real estate is the most secure investment you could get into, right? Majority of our million and billionaires now will tell you that they get most of their money from some form or sort of investment as it pertains to real estate,
Yeah.
right? So it is the most secure investment that you can get into, and so most people don't want to do multifamily because they don't want to deal with a tenant.
Yeah.
But what I say is that, you know, if you can invest in a multifamily now, if you can get pre-approved to do so,
Yeah.
and stay there for 3 to 5 years, dealing with that tenant,
Yeah.
and then being able to move out of the unit that you're living in, and then buy a single family wherever you want to buy that single family, and have that multifamily pay for the single family, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Right? And so the benefit of having a multifamily is that you're now getting yourself really solidified into real estate and really set yourself up for a nice retirement plan, especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, that's the benefit of being able to do a multifamily. The bank will also, in some cases, you more qualified for a multi as opposed to a single. So for example, let's say you purchase a multifamily in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
all right, 3/3 or 3/2 unit, and you live in the second unit,
Yeah.
right, apartment number 2, and you rent out the 3-bedroom where you could get $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
The banks see that as income coming
Right.
in. In most cases, that rental is enough money to pay for the mortgage
Right.
alone.
Yeah.
So the bank will do that every day, all day.
Right.
Whereas if you're going into a single family,
Yeah.
where there is no rental income coming in and the payment is really just based on your income,
Right.
the bank in some cases a little bit more leery to move forward with that type of loan,
Gotcha.
right? But again, it all depends on who the individual is. Most people do not want to deal with tenants
Yeah.
and have to sit around for 3 or 5 years in order to get that multifamily to where it needs to be to move
Right.
into a single family. But I try to encourage folks to do that first.
Yeah.
You know, in Mount Vernon, where my office is, for example, the study shows that 78% or 73 or 78% of the people that live in Mount Vernon are not owners,
Really.
right? So majority of the people that's living there are renting,
Right.
which means that there's someone that owns that house. In some cases a single family, but
Right.
in most cases a multifamily that's renting to that person.
Right.
And in most cases, those people are paying mortgage
Right.
now for rent.
Right.
So, you know, we have to start training ourselves to get out of that rental mentality.
Yeah.
Because in order to get to the point where we can have some secure investment in life, we need to start looking towards, real estate.
So that being said, question piggybacking on that, when you own a multifamily home now, you want to buy a single family for yourself and use the multifamily home maybe as an investment property. When the bank evaluate your income and all that good stuff, would that affect your debt to income ratio because you already have a mortgage and now you're seeking to get a second? Or will they look at this current house, the multifamily house, as solely income now if you're telling them that you're moving out of the multifamily and you're looking to buy a single family to reside and you just want to rent out the multifamily? Will they look at that multifamily as income totally now?
They will. They'll look at that as income because the unit that you are now staying in, typically what they'll do, they'll reach out to a broker like myself and ask me to give them, BPO, what do I think that unit would rent for? And based on whatever those numbers are, they'll use that number as additional income. And so if that property can carry itself with the rental, as far as they're concerned, you're now fine to do a single family on your own with your current income from whatever your employment is. So it in most cases it helps you. It can affect you if for some reason you're upside down, right? On the rent. If for some reason renting those units, it's still not enough to carry the mortgage, then the bank might look at that as an issue. They obviously also think about the possibility of someone not paying the rent as well, right? So again, the numbers always have to make sense. In our current market right now, it's difficult. The banks are very leery about loaning any money right now. I have investors that I work with that are not acquiring any new properties or loans right now because there's so many people unemployed, there's so many people furloughed, there's so many people whose salary was cut in half. And so in a current situation, that property would definitely have to be able to show for a number of years maybe that it can carry and take care of itself for the bank to say, okay, we feel comfortable enough to give you a loan for you to buy a single family. But it happens every day, all day.
So the closing process. I know a lot of people, I remember when I was looking for a home, it could be very daunting and you could you want to just throw your hands up and say, I'm done with this. So just educate the people on the whole process and the timeline and how long closing may take, because I think a lot of people get frustrated and discouraged. So just explain the timeline on closing.
Good question. I wasn't sure. All of the things we were going to discuss when you and I scheduled an appointment to meet. I used to, and I haven't done it in a while. I used to do these home buyer seminars, to pretty much educate people on the process, because a lot of folks were not familiar with the process from start to finish, and even why they needed a broker, why they needed a mortgage person, why they need an attorney. Here in New York
there you go, your opportunity. Before we get into it, tell us why we need a broker versus an agent.
Well, a broker is real estate broker is someone that works. Agent works on the real estate broker. A broker, you typically have to work for at least 2.5 years. You have to earn X amount of points. Forget exactly what the number is, but those points you earn based on the amount of homes you sold or apartments you rent, and then you apply for a broker's license. And so typically when you're working with an agent, that agent reports to a broker. All right. And so I don't understand why people wouldn't look for a broker to work with when you're looking to purchase a home, because you don't pay that broker. Their broker or agent get paid from the proceeds of the sale. So whoever is selling the property have to pay that broker, right? And so you wouldn't go buy, or you wouldn't want to go buy a used car and not have a mechanic check that car out first, right?
So you act as the mechanic in the process to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Right. And to make matters even better for you, you don't pay me. I get paid from the person. So by all means, it just doesn't make any sense for you not to have a broker.
So we get your expertise, but we don't have to pay you. So win-win for you on the whole.
Win-win for everyone on the whole, right? But here, take a look at that. When I did the home buyer seminar, there was 7 steps that I used to break down for people in the home buyer seminar. Step number 1, all right, the buying consultation. So that's when you and I will sit. I have an idea of what you're looking for. Some people are not realistic, right, in terms of what they're looking for. What that means? Someone might be looking for a single family here in Rye, New York, and only want to spend $250,000.
Right.
You're not gonna find that. Right.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that you and I are on the same page.
Right. You can afford what you're looking for. Gotcha.
Step number one. Step number two, the loan approval process. I mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I always want you to go and get a credit card
Right.
to know how much is on that credit card before we go shopping.
Gotcha.
Right. And shopping is step number three, searching for a home.
Okay.
So once we've actually gotten to the point where you're realistic in terms of what you're looking for in the neighborhood you're looking for, then I start to send you listings in those areas and we start to go out and look at those
Should the
properties.
prospective buyer make a list of what their
Yes.
needs and their wants? Because there's a
Absolutely.
whole difference between needs and wants.
Needs and wants. Yes, that's a good point. And
Yeah.
so that's some of the things that we go through, during that whole consulting process to make sure that they're on the right. And some folks just don't know.
Yeah.
Some people just not aware of really what is available to them
Okay.
based on their budget. So yeah, we start to go out, review homes. That's
Yeah.
step number 4.
Yeah.
Step number 5, developing a pricing strategy.
Yeah.
Which means that you'll see a property listed for $500,000.
Yeah.
The seller, he or she knows that they're not going to get $500,000. They know that they're probably going to fall around $450,000.
Yeah.
And so we need to realize that and understand that you might go look at a property for $500,000 or $550,000, but when it's all said and done, we're probably going to end up negotiating, lower
Right.
than what the listing price is.
Right.
Which actually goes into step number 6.
Right.
Writing a negotiation offer. We just don't offer a price on a house. You want to do what's called comps, comparables on a house.
Yeah.
So if Trevor is selling a house in Brooklyn for $500,000, and that house is 300 square feet, we want to make sure that we're looking to see whether or not houses in that neighborhood with 300 square feet sells for $500,000.
Yeah.
And so your offer should be based on what the market calls for. And so that's how you kind of figure out whether or not you want to put an offer in on a house or not. You just don't throw an offer out.
Right.
Throw an offer out.
So, do you generally bid a percentage, maybe 10% below what they're offering, or what is your formula for making an offer?
It all depends.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes I know that there's quite a few offers that's coming out on a property,
Right.
coming in on a property, and my client really wants that property. And so I don't want to go too much lower
Right.
than what they're asking, because if that's the case, I know that our offer will be put on the bottom of the pile,
Yeah.
right? So if it's a situation where my client really wants the property, and we don't have a whole lot of other options,
Yeah.
then you don't negotiate too much. You try to kind of meet them where they are. But if it is a situation where we know there's not many offers that's coming in on the property, then yes, you go maybe 10 or 15% below what the current asking price is, based on what the BPO says, right?
Okay.
Or what the
What
comp
is the
says.
what's the BPO?
It's really the comparables is what
Okay.
it is. So
Okay.
the comps is I am matching apples to apples.
Yeah.
All right. So your property in the past 6 months, properties of your nature, your size, your condition, your location sells for $600,000. So I know you're asking for $650,000,
Yeah.
but it's only selling for $600,000. In fact, the bank will do the same thing. The bank is going to send an appraiser out, and the appraiser is going to say, okay, based on my research, properties of that size in this area is not selling for $500, it's selling for $480.
Yeah.
So we will loan the prospective buyer $480. We're not going to loan him $500.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what happens in the market sometimes is Trevor will have a house that he wants to list, and because he has gold ceiling and a gold floor,
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
he feel like he can list his property for $700,000, $800,000.
Yeah.
And the property right next door to him, same layout, everything, just have regular wood floors and cardboard ceiling or sheetrock ceiling, and his property is listed for $500.
Right.
Because you have gold ceilings, it's not going to sell for $7 because the market doesn't call for that,
Yeah.
right? The bank is going to say, no, we can only loan up to $5.
Yeah.
Because if the property burns up tomorrow, the true real value of the house is not 7 or 8,
Gotcha.
right? It's really 5.
So people that go in and maybe put in $200,000, like you said, on a house, and put all these elaborate fittings, you don't necessarily get that money back what you're selling unless the people in the neighborhood do the same and raise the entire neighborhood value.
The market has to call for that.
I got you.
Yeah.
So I kind of skipped over it, but I just wanted to ask you, the agent and the broker, define the two for me.
So you go to real estate school,
Yeah.
Wherever that may be. Some people take real estate course online.
Yeah.
You do your 600 and some odd hours
Yeah.
in school. You take a classroom exam.
Yeah.
You pass the classroom exam. You then get a certificate to take a state exam. When you go down and take the state exam, you have to have a broker to sponsor you.
Yeah.
So the state wants to know that, okay, if we give you this salesperson license as an agent, you have to work under someone that can supervise you and make sure that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
And so that's what an agent is, right?
Right.
Someone that is on the entry level of real estate. Now, granted, some agents have more knowledge than brokers.
Right.
Some agents have been in the business longer than a broker.
Yeah.
Delroy Smith, real estate broker. Company's name is New Middleton Realty. I'm based in Westchester County. I normally have a 1-800 number that you can call, but I'll give you my cell phone number, or you can reach out to Trevor directly if anyone has any questions or wanted to reach out to me for any reason. But you can always reach me at 914-233-6402. Again, interest rate is low. So if you are an essential worker or just someone in general that was thinking about purchasing, I would say now is definitely the best time to do so. If you are someone that was in the market and was thinking about listing your property, feel free to reach out to me as well. I can definitely help with that, especially if your property is in the suburbs. Again, now is definitely a good time to do so. But again, you know, interest rate will eventually go up. And so if someone is thinking about making a move, whether it be buying or selling, you know, you kind of want to make sure that you don't miss the current opportunity that's in the real estate market right now.
And I could definitely vouch for this brother right here. He's very dependable, very professional. I know you noticed that in the interview, and you'll be in good hands. I suggest that if you're looking for property, rental, or looking to buy, this is the guy you call. And once again, guys, thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Black Ambassadors of Change, making a difference in our community. Peace out.